Good evening, everyone. Um, yet and welcome. I'm welcoming you to another episode of our learning. So we will be learning Java today. Let's get to our slides. Okay. So this tutorial will teach you Java in just 1 hour. It's the basics only because we cannot cover the whole chapter within just a 1 hour video. Okay. So let's see what we will going to be learning today. Okay. So let's get started with the basics. Now, before learning Java, the main concept that you need to know is OOP or Object Oriented Programming. Object Oriented Programming is actually a model that is being adopted by modern programming languages. What it does, it helps in reducing redundant code. That is, you make one method and you can reuse it on several times. Before, when the procedure approach was used, the reusability was a big issue. You have to simply copy code and then paste it everywhere you required. That is one of the biggest disadvantages of POP. Now let's talk about Java, which is one of the languages that adopted the OOP approach. Actually, there are several programming languages that adopted that, such as C++, C, Python, etc. But the special thing about Java is it is pure object oriented. That is, in pure object orientation, no objects or methods can be outside of a class. Every single element, statements, keywords must be inside a class. There are exceptions, that's true. So we'll be discussing this exception as well. Now let's get to our next slide. That is the four pillars of object oriented programming. Now the four features that makes OOP one of the most famous method approaches to be adopted. Those are encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. Now let's talk about encapsulation. Imagine you have a laptop, right? So you know how to use that. But when you press a button to start your laptop, there are several functions going on inside without your knowledge. You don't know that what is going inside the complex circuitry. So all these complex circuits are being well encapsulated in your motherboard of laptop, which can be controlled by a press of only a button. Encapsulation is actually related to abstraction. What is abstraction? Abstraction is used so that to reduce the complexity of any functions or methods. You can take an example of a car. So what can a car contain? Let's say a car have properties such as color, weight, model, and have functions that is move, stop, and gear functions, you can say. But there are several complex mechanism that is going under your knowledge. You don't know what is going inside the car when you push the gear lever. So the functions are well abstracted inside the car. Now the function mechanisms are encapsulated and the functions itself is being abstracted. So that is used in programming to reduce the parameters in a function. The less number of functions parameter you have, the easier it will be to use. Now Java has several methods such as private and public methods that define either the object is um, visible to everyone, that is every single code outside. You can call it from any other Java files or inside the code also. But there are also private methods does is that it specifies that this method can only be accessed by the members of the class, not by any outside code. So the data is actually binded very closely to the classes, and therefore data leak is very less in this case. Now let's talk about inheritance. Inheritance, as its name suggests, is actually the property of the acquiring the form of another class with new explicit features. Let's understand by a simple example. A company will have new leaders. Let's say one of the founders have a son which in future will be going to take the responsibility of the company himself. So the son has inherited the properties of the company from his dad, and the son can add new features such as maybe new sales techniques, new products. So those features are explicitly added to the classes. So inheritance actually helps in reducing redundant code by simply extending the classes instead of rewriting them every time you want to update. Polymorphism is actually quite related to inheritance. Polymorphism means one functions and different forms. Poly means different and morphism means forms. Okay, so let's talk about the Java, that is the topic we are going to learn today. Java, as I discussed earlier, is based on object oriented programming, a programming language developed and maintained by Sun Microsystem and currently owned by Oracle. Now, that is the properties of Java, that Java was built by Sun Microsystem and currently owned by Oracle. That is nothing to know much. Let's move to next slide. So this slide tells us that what tools we are going to use today. We are going to use Java SDK 8 or the Java runtime that is actually going to execute our codes. Now the Java JDK AC13 or Java Development Kit 13 is actually a console program that is used to compile and develop Java programs. VS Code is actually an IDE or integrated development environment. It is used for editing several programming languages, but we are going to use it for editing Java programs and compiling them. And Windows machine means we are absolutely going to compile the whole thing in our Windows machine. Okay, so these are the download links. You can go to java.com and download to download Java, the runtime. To download the development kit, go to oracle.com/java/technologies /java se jdk13 downloads.html. To download Visual Studio Code, just go to code.visualstudio.com. Okay, let's move on to our next slide. Okay, so now we are going to do some examples so that we can understand how actually Java works. Let me switch to the editor. Okay, so we are going to use VS Code. When you open VS Code for the first time, you will get this window. Now, I'm not going to talk about much of this IDE. Simply whatever we need for this tutorial, I'm going to discuss that only. Okay. Now, to create a file, we must store them somewhere. To store the file, somewhere we need to specify a folder. So you will see in the workspace you will get a add folder option. Simply click on that, and when you click on add folder, the file manager will pop up, and you can add your code files on the folders you want. Actually, I cannot show you the current file manager. I don't know why it is not showing, but I actually got it. Okay, so actually I'm going to create a new folder so that I can work with it in this tutorial. Let's create a new folder here. Let's name it Java Tut. You can just name it anything you want. That is totally up to you. That what you want to name your folder. You can also add pre-created folders. Now, after your specified folder, you will see a Java Tut, the folder name only. Now, the next thing you need to have is the terminal. Now, what is the terminal? The terminal is actually a built-in program in VS Code that actually helps us to add external command prompt into our window. First, go to terminal and click on new terminal. If you are using Windows, you will by default get command prompt as your default terminal. Okay, so here we have command prompt as our default terminal. You can see that my terminal has been set to the folder I am using currently. Fine. Now let's create a new file. To create a new file, simply go to java.it, select it and click on new file. When you click on new file, it will give you a text box where you can write the file name as well as the extension. So let's say the file name will be myfile.java. Okay, so I will create that file and it will be automatically added in my workspace. As you can see, it has automatically added in my workspace or editor. More I say. Okay, now before getting started, I must tell that the class name should always match the file name. So let's write our simple hello world program. Okay, so now we have our first program that will print hello world in the terminal. First, save it by Ctrl or Ctrl plus S. Since we have already specified the workspace folder and the terminal, it will not prompt you any file manager to save. Now go to terminal. Sometimes it happens that the terminal does not connect to the folder you are currently working. In that case, you have to specify the directory. How can you specify the directory? First of all, specify the disk you are using. I am using the J disk. If I want to switch to iDisk, I say I and a colon. I'll be switching I, right? And if you want to create a folder, you can do it by mk or make dir, make dir or make directory your folder name. Let's say my folder, and to access that folder you have to write cd. Cd means current directory, which is my folder. As you can see, I have been switched to my folder, but the java file that I'm using, myfile.java, is not stored in my folder. So I have to switch to the j disk. So I will go to j partition, sorry, j partition, and let me show you from scratch. Okay, so I have to go to quiz and then java toot. I will say cd, first folder is quiz, the second folder is give a backslash in the second folder name, and it will switch to here. Now if I say show me the files that contain in it, so I will say dir. So I have, see, I have my files.java. What is the size? 119 bytes. You can do much more with the terminal. Okay, so as I have saved this file, I can compile it. So how to compile it? Simply type java c for compile your file name. What is the file name? myfile.java. It will take some time and it will compile. Now you can see we get a class file, right? Now this class file is the file that can be executed on any machine that has Java SDK installed. Now you have to use Java, only Java. Java means run. Class name, what is the class name? My file. See, here we have a hello world program written. Now let's do some more complex programs. I will clear my screen. Okay, so before doing some complex programs, I will define that what I have written in this code. Okay, so the keyword public says that my file, which is a class, is public, that is available to everyone, or if you say in terms of computer language, to every Java programs to access. That is, any Java program can access my file class because it is public. If you say only class, then it will be by default private. If you say private, I mean you can specify it to be private, but if you do not specify anything, it will be by default private. Now we have defined our class, right? Now we have to define methods. Methods are, you can say, functions that store codes inside a class. So here we say I have a method which is public, available to everyone, which is static, that it does not inherit or it does not do any dynamic activities. Void means it does not return any values, it does not work with integers or float or return any value. Main, actually this is a function name. You have to specify main function. Every Java program starts with the function main. If you do not specify the main, the Java program will execute an error that the main function or the main method is they are unable to find the main method. So you must have the main method always in any class. You can just create multiple class and you must have that main method. Okay, now let's see what is in this brackets. I have written string args. Now in these brackets, the first bracket, you write parameters. Now what is parameters? Parameters are actually definition, or you are defining new variables of any type. let's say you can define integer variables, you can define float variables, but in main function you must define the string, that is the text. Args means argument, and that square bracket means array. Now what is an array? Well, array is the list. I mean, you can save a data in a list using arrays. For example, you have multiple strings to be stored in a single argument variable but separately, then you will use arrays. Let's say I have array 0, then the first string will be stored to variable name and it's 0 array. Actually arrays works in whole number, so you have to um remember it, that the first argument or the first string or the first any value will be stored in the 0 array, because arrays works in whole number. I'll be discussing about arrays in our future sessions, not now. Okay, so you have to write this, it is a must. If you do not write string arguments args, you have to write args only, because the Java compiler will take this as the main definition of a main method. If you don't write this, then Java compiler will return error that we are unable to find the main method. Okay, now what we have here? System out println. Okay, now we have to see what actually it does. What is system.out.println, right? As I have defined methods and classes, let me tell you, every Java file will have the Java util language class initially imported. It is imported automatically. It is not imported by the user manually. Now, when you import that class, you will have the system method. Yes, system method. Actually, system class, which have out method, which again has the print line or ln method, which takes the parameter of a string, because you are writing in double quotes. It takes a parameter in string and displays it on the screen. As you can see, we have done here hello world. Just a minute. Didn't I compile it earlier? Yes, I think I did. Okay, let redo it. Okay, so if I run this, it will say hello world. Why is it taking so much time? Okay, it will say hello world, because the system.out.println class will take the parameter of strings. Actually, it takes parameters in different ways. Here, the polymorphism comes to play. Now, println will behave differently on different types of data. If you enter a variable, it will get the variable value, that is, anything without double quotation will be defined as a variable. Now variable has its own definition. You cannot use any keywords in a variable. You cannot use semicolon, dashes and numerics for the first character in a variable. There are many rules. I'll be discussing it in this session only. Now if you want to print a string, the println will be switching to that class. I mean, there is a overriding. I'll be discussing overriding in inheritance and polymorphism. Now overriding means you are creating two different classes of same name, but they have different parameters. They takes different parameters and does different functions. Thus they are forming the main meaning of polymorphism. So print ln and print are the meaning of polymorphism in Java program, because they behave differently upon different actions. Okay, so this is our first program to print hello world. Now this is okay, but we want to create something else. Let's start working with variables. So I want to create a new file again, and now I will name this class calculator.java. Okay, now I have already this, I think, auto typed. Okay, so I have a public class calculator. Now in this program I'm going to work with variables. How variables works, how can you define them? Now simply the first step is to define the main method. So let's define it. Public static void main string args, because it is important, it is a must. Okay, okay, now there are several variable types. Let me discuss it. Int int means integer. Float means decimals. Decimals, but up to one decimal point, that is 0.1 or 2.3, only one. Now if you want to use more than one decimal point, you have to use double. Now what double does? Double actually can calculate up to 3 decimal points or even more depending upon the requirements. So it is also decimals, but more than 3 places. Let's say example 2.659 and so on and so forth. Now let's learn about these are the basics of variables. Now there are more, like string. String takes values in quotations. Okay, string takes values in quotation because strings saves text. Now there is another one, which is char or char or character. It is used to store a single character like a, b, c, etc. And you can use arrays to store multiple characters, as I have discussed in the array. Okay, now let's create our new variable. How can you define a variable? First of all, to define a new variable, which is called declaration, you are declaring a new variable. So first we need to specify what is the type of the variable we want to create. Let's say we want to create the integer, so I will say int. Now write the variable name, let's say a, and we have declared that a will be a variable that will store integers, that is minus, there is a range, I forgot, and to positive there is a range, but no decimals, with no decimal points. Now we can initialize, that is we can say that the variable a can have a value, that is a equals to whatever value you want in integer format. You can say -5, -10 or 10. But if you say a equals to 10, what will happen is a's value will be changed from -5 to 10. You are swapping the values, right? You can also declare and initialize the variable at the same time. How? Init a is equals to 10. Actually I should not define a variable two times. Let's say init b is equals to 10. Every statement in Java ends with the semicolon, except this class declaration and the method declaration. You must remember it, or otherwise you will get error. Okay. Now these are some variables. Let's say I want to store my name, so I will say string, that is a text which is name, my name, which is equals to, in quotations, always in quotations, let's say my name. String can contain spaces, special characters and everything. Okay, so we have this thing. Now we can use these variables several times. We can use this variable for printing purposes and for other purposes. Now let's say I want to print my name. Let's go to system dot out dot print, and now I don't want to print my name by simply giving a string value. I am going to use the polymorphism form of print and print the variable, that is name. Since the name is actually a variable, it will um, not have any quotations. Let's see if we have any error in this program by simply compiling it. Java C. Okay, I haven't saved this. Always save your programs. Calculator.java. It is saying that file not found. Okay, I say okay, I have given wrong file name. Calculator.java. Okay, now I hope it compiles my program successfully. It is taking some time. I don't know why it is taking so much time. Okay, now we have the class calculator. If I say Java, that is run, my class, that is calculator, you can see my name has been printed. Always remember not to declare initialize variables if you don't need them, because they are actually taking the memory and the storage in RAM. Yeah, see, these variables had no real use in our program since now. So this, you will think that they got disappeared. No, the program actually stored each of the variables in our memory, but they were not used. Now that is not good. You should not declare variable uselessly, because it will make your program very laggy and even slower in some devices. Okay, so to improve performance, we should reduce those codes that are actually not required. Now let's talk about comments. What are comments? Now if I say you want to review something, but you don't want the main content to be changed, you simply comment on it. Similarly, in Java, we have two types of comments. That is one, single line comment, double backslash, that is comment, and another one is backslash star star, and then it ends with actually three star and backslash, and between two star you have to write. You cannot write between one star. Yes, you can write. Actually, you can write anywhere, even here, but the program will itself become a comment. So always write between the stars. It is a multi-line comment, that is, if you say and say continues, the comment will continue. But this comment, when you press enter, it will not become usable, because these comments are single line comments. Now where to use what? To define a single line, you can use single line comments. If you want to define, I mean, you want to say the developer that this comment will be here, you can simply do it by inserting the multi-line comment inside the program. Let's say this will print name, but it will not do any change to our program. It will just do it functions. Let's say java c. As I have changed the file, I have to recompile it. Now it takes less time because I have deleted the lines that I don't required because they are taking memory. Now I run it. See, it just run very fine. The function was same. Just I specified that this will simply print name. Comments are ignored by compiler. You can just put them anywhere you want. Okay. Now we are done with comments. Let's get to our next topic, which is if else and if else. Actually, they are control statements. What is a control statement, you may ask? Actually, control statements are those which will execute the particular code depending upon a condition which is true or false. You cannot understand it if I just explain you. I have to explain it with an example. So I will create a new file and name it um, condition.java, since we are working with conditional statements. Okay, now as always define your main method. Okay, now let's say we want to make a rating system, that is user will say what the rating of a movie he may or she may likes, then according to that we will say that the movie is good or bad. Okay, now let's say I have an integer and let's say marks. Let's say marks is 10. Now if I say if marks is equals to, see the equals to sign when used in the, I mean single use, that means initializing, you are transporting the value of 10 into marks, but we are not transporting any value into marks. We are comparing. To compare you have to use double equals to sign and new value. Let's say if marks equals to 50, then we will say marks is above 50, but else has no conditions and parameters. The reason is that if nothing matches, you are not going to create another condition for it. Else is used when nothing matches. Every exception has been tested and they have been found false. So else is always true when every other exceptions are false. I will show you how can you use multiple exceptions. Okay, so else, that is if marks is not equals to 50. Out dot print marks is not equals to 50. Okay, now since we have specified that marks is 10, so what type of output we are expecting? We are expecting the last one, the final code that will be executed when all other exceptions are false. Now let's compile this. I'm compiling it. I've compiled it. Now I will run it. Okay, so as you can see, the marks has been specified 10. Therefore it is telling that marks is not equals to 50, as just we expected. Now if I increase it to 50, what will happen? Let's see what will happen. You can simply say on the comment also, and Java condition. Okay, marks is above 50. Yes, but there is a problem. If I say marks is equals to 60, it will say marks is not equals to 50. Why? Because I say if marks is absolutely to 50, it is not specifying any range. It's absolute, that less than 50, more than 50, it will go to else. If it is exactly 50, not even negative, exactly 50, it will execute this. To solve this problem, we use the greater than sign. If you, okay, let me discuss about this. What uh, types of the operators are there? I'll be discussing the basics one only. If you want to assign something, that is value of something will be something, then use 1 equals to. If you want to compare something with an absolute value which is not going to change, you will use double equals to. If you are going to specify some ranges, that is maybe when my marks is less than 50, that is any number between 0 minus let's say infinite to 50 will be counted in the if. So you will say if my marks is less than 50, any number between 50 will be will make that block execute. Same for the greater than, any number which is greater than 50, any number 51, not 50, excluding 50, 51 to infinite will be counted in that code block, that is marks greater than 50. Now if we want to say that if my marks is 50 as well as less than 50, so what we can do, because if you use less than sign, then we cannot specify 50 itself. It will say 0 infinite minus negative infinite to 49 only, it will not go to 50. And for the greater than, it will go from 51 to infinite, because we have specified the absolute value of greater than 50. So it will always add a number in greater than, and it will always reduce one number in less than. To solve this problem, we have greater than equals to, less than equals to. So if we want to say that my marks is between 0 to 50, okay, let's say 0 to 50, then we can say less than equals to 50, that is it is less than 50 also and it is equals to 50 also, both thing at the same times. Now if I say marks greater than equals to 50, it means that 50 also and any number from 50 to infinite. Let's test this out. I want to say that any number greater than or equals to 50 will execute this piece of code. So let's save this and run our compiler. Okay, so I'm compiling it. Go to Java condition. Okay, I've given the wrong class name. Okay, the marks is above 50, yes, because I've specified greater than equals to. If I say 60 and then I again compile it, then what will happen? See, same, because I'm using 50 as well as any number greater than 50. If I only use greater than, then and if I say that 50, now you see what happens. Marks is not equals to 50, but it is actually, I mean, you want it to be that, but due to some reason, if many new user doesn't know that there is greater than equals to any number including 50 to infinite, positive infinite will be counted. But here if you use only greater than sign, then any number greater than 50, that is no excluding 50, 50 will not be included in it. Excluding 50, each and every number will be counted to the positive infinite. Okay, so this was if else statement. Now what if you have to add, okay, let me discuss more about it. Now not equals to, I have to say that if you want to say that my marks is not equals to 50, now how can you say that? I mean, how will you define it that my marks is not equals to 50? With what symbol? You will use exclamation equals to. This will say that my marks is actually not equals to 50. Let's say if marks not equals to 50, actually it can be anything. I mean, without using 50, any number less than, greater than, negative, positive will be counted. So anything which is not equals to 50 will be, will make this piece of code execute. This piece of code execute. Okay, now let's try this if it works. I hope it doesn't throws an error. No, again. Okay, what happened? Marks is above 50. I say marks is not equals to 50, and see marks is 51, so marks is not equals to 50, therefore it will execute marks is about 50. Okay, so I hope everybody, I hope whoever is watching this has understood up to this part. Okay, now let's discuss about class methods. Okay, before going to class methods, I will say how can we add more statements. To add more statements, use else if. Else if any condition, let's say marks less than 50, the below code will be executed. System.out.println just a code. Okay, so any number that is less than 50 will be executed, but here is a catch. Any number less than 50 will make this code execute as well and this code execute as well. Let's see which one actually executes or if it gives an error. So if I say condition.java, see I have no syntax errors, so any runtime error may occur. So because syntax is correct, now the first statement has been accepted initially. I mean, this code is being read line by line. When the compiler got to know that marks is actually less than 50 initially, it will not go here. It will ignore it. I mean, it will be totally ignored. Therefore, this will be executed. Always remember this. If you have two statements that actually work similar with similar variables, then um, you have to specify, I mean, you must specify them. You should not make them work on the same variables. There may be some exceptions. I want to know what exceptions you are facing. Okay, you should not do that. Why? Because the first one that you have defined will be executed. So there is the problem. Okay, now since we have learned the condition system statements, we will be learning switch. By the way, I will be uh, teaching switch in the next episode. I want to keep it for the next episode. I want to teach what is the class methods, right? Now, class methods is actually one of the most important concepts you have to learn. Let's create a new file. Let's say class method. Okay, C methods. Because class method is just too lengthy name for a class, I will have problems with compiling it. C methods method dot java. Okay, let's clear this console. Okay, now I have public static, not public static, public class C method, right? C method as the name of the file suggests. Now I'm going to say how you can use classes. I mean, how to define class, how to work with classes and objects, how to retrieve their information. Most importantly, I will create another class OTH. Okay, actually OTH must be above it. Okay, so I have OTH and C method. Now let's say I have a method that is void public void, let's say it is a properties. Okay, so this will take init length, init breadth. Now these are parameters. You have to declare variables. You cannot initialize any variables in parameters. You have to just declare them. Okay, so what I am telling, you should not use semicolon, sorry. Okay, so what this says that I have a public void. Actually, I should not make it void, I should make it init integer, because it will be returning a value. Okay, properties, the name of the method is properties. Since it is not the main method, it will be not executed first. Okay, so it has two parameters, that is it will be taking two variables. Now what are the parameters in detail? See, when you are going to pass variables from one class to another, you have to use these parameters, because variables are not super global. They will not be available to each and every class once declared. It will be available locally on only this class which is being declared in this class. So you have to pass those using parameters, unlike Python. Okay, now let's say I have area. I want to find integer area. Now what is the formula of area? Length into breadth. So since I already declared length as an integer, breadth as an integer, I do not have to say that they are integer again. I will simply do the mathematical operation length into breadth. There are actually the mathematical operations are very same to what we use in our basic maths. The star or the asterisk goes for multiplication, the plus sign is addition, dash is subtraction, and backslash is division. You can also use brackets for applying Bodmas rule. Actually, it implies the Bodmas rule from the beginning only. So if you say that you have the Bodmas rule, that is brackets of brackets of exponent. First exponents will be calculated. Now exponents can be done using this up, what I will say, up arrow. You can say up arrow. You can do exponents using that. So what we have, area, which is telling length must be multiplied by breadth. Now let's say length we have provide any value and breadth we provide any value. So first I will multiply length with breadth. Let's say length 10 by 20. So length into breadth 200 will be passed to area, because I am saying equals to, that is same. These and these are same, which is an integer data type. Now I will say return area. Now what is return area? Return means that the area variable, the value of area variable will be returned to the caller. That is, you must call this function, without it you cannot use it, because it is not the main method as well. To use this method you have to call it. Now there are several ways to call, but if any method is actually returning a value, you have to call it by using a variable. Let me show you by a simple example. Let's define our main method. In marks argument I want to call. Okay, now first of all we want to describe that which class we are using, I mean which class we want to call. That is the auth class, right? OTH. Now here we can use OTH as a data type. Let's say OTH is a data type whose variable name is, let's say, a, which is equals to new OTH, and you have to give this parenthesis, which is of no use now. Okay, now what this statement means, that I am using this class OTH as a data type and declaring a as one of the methods of OTH. Now what is a? A is a new OTH, that is, we are giving it permission, a new permission to a, that it can access each and every method which is public. Now to access a method we will simply say a dot method name, right? Let's say properties, right? You must give this parenthesis, okay, brackets. This will call this method, but you cannot see anything in your display. You have to first specify that what, I mean you have to give the values. How can you give this value? Since I have says init length comma init breadth, I will say, sorry, that init length is equals to 10 and init breadth equals to 20. But then also it will not work. Why? Because you are not storing this variable anywhere. Now it is an integer data type, so you must use integer. So I will say init value is equals to a dot properties. So what we'll do, that a dot properties will call the property method which has length declared, breadth declared, which we say that length equals to 10 and breadth equals to 20. That is, we'll be providing corresponding values in the brackets. Now it will first calculate the area. How will calculate? Length multiplied by breadth will be stored into area, which is an integer data type. Now it will return the area. Return the area means if you have declared a variable, it will return this area value to value. The value of area will be stored in this value as well if you declare it like this. Now I want to print this value, so I will say system dot out dot println value. I will save it and will compile it. Let's see if it has some errors. Okay, it has some errors. Okay, and it cannot declare two classes in a single um, Java file, right? We have to use a different OTH. Okay, so let's do it. Ctrl X and new file oth.java view and save it. I also save this. Now first of all I will clear this one. Okay, now I will compile each file separately. First I will compile the OTH. Okay, I have repeated public. I don't know why it has repeated public. I think it has some predefined errors in editor only. What? Okay, I didn't saved it. What? Cannot. Is there any problem with the editor? Man, what is this? I don't know what is happening. Somehow the editor has got some wrong texting. Okay. Variable length, yes. Cannot find symbol length. But okay. That is the reason. I understood. Okay. You must give spaces after a comma. Let's see if it works now. Is there any problem? I have defined integer length. Hmm. Okay. I have done typo. Sorry, that is the reason. It was a typo. Okay, now let's check it has any typo or not. It has no typos since what I saw. Okay, now let's run. 200. Okay, now as we expected, it worked. Let me redefine it from the beginning. Okay, I have a class called C method, and now, which is public, of course, it can be accessed by anyone. I have a main method. Now this line tells that Okay, now let me tell you, the class names can be used as variable declaration as well. You can declare a variable upon a class, that is class name variable. Yes, you can do it. E- Equals to new OTH. I have to define it to you by an example. The class, I am saying that the OTH class has a variable a, right? So let's assume that OTH is a company and A is the manager, new manager that is assigned to OTH. Now this manager can access the, I mean, most properties that are allowed in the OTH company. So OTH is a class, A is the manager, and we are giving it a new post, that is new OTH class. So for each variables you declare, we have to say new class name and parentheses because of arguments. Since we don't have any argument in our methods, so we'll be discussing it in our next sessions, which it is quite advanced. Okay, now I'm telling that the OTH company has a new manager A, which has a new post that is in the company OTH, right? Now since this properties is giving out some values, it is not printing anything, so I'm not simply calling it. If I only say a dot properties 10 and 20, it will do nothing. The terminal will be empty and your memory will be lost. I mean, it will be used for nothing. So I have to store. Okay, let me explain you thoroughly. So the manager has been given a task to find the area, right? Now the manager A goes to properties method, or let's say properties is a new person. He goes to properties method and tells that, and the properties person actually accepts length first and then breadth, which are integers, that is non-decimal non-fraction numbers. Now the manager will call properties by a dot properties and will say that the length is 10 and this breadth is 20. But after doing this, if the manager has no one to tell that what is the area, actually the properties will give the answer to manager A, but the manager has no one to tell the answer, right? Then the manager has worked for nothing. So to store the value of what the manager has received from the properties, we will declare another variable, that is integer. Why? Because the properties is actually giving out the value in integer data type. You have to be very cautious about these data types. It may uh, become a serious issue if you do not become very much conscious about it. So I am telling that I have an integer, a value person who will listen to the manager A, and then we'll say it to the screen. We'll print it using print method. We can print the value. So this is how the class works. Okay, so this is for today only. I'll be discussing more advanced topics in the next session. Okay, for now, good night, have a good sleep, don't go out from home, and stay with me to learn more programming languages very thoroughly and easily. Bye.